Every time that you play a note on the piano, you're either reinforcing a bad habit or a great technique. If you experience tension when you're playing, don't seem to be able to crack the particular technique or speed in the piece that you're playing, or just feel like there's something holding you back, then see if you've considered all of these points. The very worst thing about tension is when you're not able to recognize that it's even there. Your story with piano may be very different, but mine began with me thinking that maybe I'm just not quite the right fit for the piano. I'm seeing all of these technically brilliant pianists, and maybe I'm just not physically capable of playing the pieces that I'd like to. Over the course of about 10 years, I learned that there was tension in my playing, especially my thumb, and it was this that was holding me back. But more importantly, I learned what to do about it and some of the technical adjustments that I think you can take and make today that will make all the difference to your playing. We're going to find out why tension comes about, the 3-point method to tackling it, and the exercises that you can use for tension-free playing. I'll show you where you can download my mini guide with exercises later on. Before we jump in, I always forget to say this, but I'm Dominic and welcome back. So why and where does unnecessary tension come from? Suppose you're sat at the piano and you haven't quite got your posture and your setup quite correct. You're playing a piece which is a little bit challenging for you, and you've got a weakness in one area of your playing. Say that's in your how you use your fifth finger or how independent your fingers are from each other. You'll compensate for this weakness by tensing up one area and forcing the result that you want. Add to this the fact that you'll repeat to make sure that you get the outcome every time. What you've just done is reinforce and repeat the bad technique and a bad habit. Our problem started with posture and not sitting correctly, and this is the first of our 3-point method. So let's just run through some of the points that you want to bear in mind when you're sitting at the piano. The very first thing that you want to do is ensure that your stool is at the correct height for you. Too high and you'll be stooping over, and too low and you'll raise your shoulders in order to get your hands at the right height. Always think of your elbows as wanting to be at the level of the keys. The next thing is to relax the shoulders. Then think about your elbows. Your elbows don't want to be too close to the piano and be in a locked position, and they don't want to be too far away that they're in a straight position. Aim for some room between you and where your elbows are. Moving down to the wrists, we want to make sure that these are always relaxed and that we have a bridge in our hands as though you were holding an egg or a tennis ball. And then down to our feet, we want to keep these firmly planted to the floor. This is where our weight goes through. Now imagine that you have 3 taps that water needs to run through to flow from your shoulders to your fingertips. The first tap is located at your shoulders. If these are locked in too high, you're not going to be able to open that tap. So relax them down. The second one is at your elbows. If these are too tight into your body, again, they're going to tense up and lock. To open the tap, just relax your elbow. And the third one is in your wrists. You want to make sure that you have this open feeling in your wrists and they're not rigid. Awareness and knowledge will be your biggest weapon in doing anything going forwards. If you're struggling to do anything, then just think, how is my hand moving? Are any of the tension points, those pinch points, those taps, are they all open for me to be able to play? For instance, if you're tensing up your forearm, try and locate where is that tension coming from. This is certainly a step-by-step process, and you may notice that just after making yourself aware that you're doing something like raising your shoulders, 10 seconds later, you're raising them again because you've got into the habit of doing it. It's going to take at least a few weeks to get into the new habit of relaxing your shoulders, or whatever that step is that you're currently trying to conquer. We mentioned that one of the reasons for tension coming into our playing was because of a weakness in another area. And more often than not, this is to do with the fingers not being able to move independently and without the use of force. To overcome this, we want to develop fingers that are independent from the other fingers and are independent from the use of the arm. Check out my short mini guide, which talks about this a little bit more in depth and provides some exercises for you to practice. If the fingers can move independently, then there's no need for that use of force and tension in order to make them move. I will show you where you can download this just after going through the exercises for flexibility and freedom of motion. Our first exercise is about lateral movement. Chopin and Liszt ensured that students practiced lateral and circular motion exercises to avoid a rigid and stuck wrist. What we'll do with this exercise is just to take a 5-finger scale and practice this lateral movement. Through this, we're building in freedom of the wrist into our playing. All we're doing is moving it from side to side as we go up the scale and then back down the scale. Step 2 is to create a circular motion. I like to think of this as a bowl with another bowl on top, creating a sort of dome. As we go down through the first bowl, we move up the keys to the right, and as we go down the keys, we go over the dome of the second bowl. This creates this circular wrist motion and exercise. Next, apply this to a piece of music that you're playing. For instance, Chopin's Opus 10 No. 1 etude would be almost impossible without this flexibility in the wrist and this lateral movement. The 2 big takeaways are 1, awareness, and 2, that each of our fingers are moving independently and that our 3 taps are always open. Check out the super important additional exercises which are available in my free mini guide on finger independence. This is available from the link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.